Good evening, everyone. My name's Mark Fernandez. I'm a student of Buddhism at Tara Institute for a long time now. So it's my sort of pleasure to do the January teachings. I'll ask, I usually ask this, who is new? Who hasn't been here before? Okay. Great. Well, welcome. And to those of you who've been before, and I see quite a few familiar faces, welcome again. So tonight I'm going to cover a little bit more on some of the topics I briefly touched on last week, and also go into a little bit more depth as well. So just to start with, in Buddhism, motivation is very important. So for the period of the teachings, we should be thinking that I'm going to do my best to develop good qualities. And how do we do that? We do that firstly by listening, and then the second part is thinking about or ruminating, cogitating. It's sort of that cognitive sort of process we go through when we hear something. So we should be doing that as we listen. That's very important, because otherwise it could be, it goes in one ear and out the other, or it's that boring you fall asleep. So it's important to sort of have some engagement. And then the third method we can develop good qualities through meditation. So we'll do a little bit of meditation ourselves later. So we can set the motivation for the period of the 1 hour we have. So we can do that. We're going to motivate to develop good qualities for ourselves alone. So it's very good. That's valid. So we can also extend it out to motivation for all sentient beings. So which includes us. So we're one of many. So it's just a frame of mind. So you think, oh, well, I can only do it for me. That's sufficient. But if you can go further, that's better. Maybe it's harder, but I'm not sure, actually. Depends how you view humankind. So whether we're an island or we're social beings, what are we at our core? And I tend to lean towards that we're more social beings, so we need each other. So that idea of setting motivation for the benefit of others, right at the beginning, can be developed. It can become very spontaneous and natural too. So the first thing I'll cover tonight is something His Holiness the Dalai Lama says. It's a truism. So he says that all beings want happiness and don't want suffering. So it's like, oh, well, is that true? So we might, in a perverse way, reach for things that cause us suffering. But our motivation for doing that is because we think those things will bring us some form of happiness. So reaching for a bottle of alcohol and then overindulging. Our initial thought is, oh, well, if I have a few glasses, it'll make me feel happy. But the result is that it will probably bring you some form of happiness. Unhappiness, suffering later. So, yeah. So the other, just with that truism that His Holiness uses, he actually extends that to all beings. So not just the humans on this planet. So even the animals, they have some sense of themselves and some sense that they want to avoid being trampled on, being part of the food chain, being harmed. So it applies even to them. So in Buddhism, we're mainly looking at the mental aspects of ourselves and others as being the sources of happiness. So we don't ignore the material things or the physical things, because they're, the building blocks of our society and our well-being and so on. But we're mainly focused on the mental side of things. So the mental development, the source of happiness being sort of mental factors within ourselves. In fact, Buddhism says that that the mind is the source of all suffering and all happiness. So how can it be that the mind is the source of happiness and also the source of suffering? So that's something you need to explore yourselves. But we can use an example. So if we have everything we could physically desire, everything, great job, relationship, house, family, friends, everything, but if we were mentally dissatisfied with all that, could we say that we were happy? Like, even if we had that accumulation of things, if we were mentally dissatisfied with our lot, I don't think, if we're looking at a meter, we'd probably say, well, you're veering to the unhappy side of the meter because you're still not happy. All those things didn't seem to bring you happiness at that point. And then conversely, there are people who don't have everything, but they're completely satisfied with what they have. So they're happy and they're content. So they're satisfied. So there's a sort of if you like, pendulum. You go, all right, you've got some things, you don't have everything, but you're happy with what you have. See, and you're satisfied. You're mentally at peace. So to me, that latter state's a better state to be in, because you might find, well, the wealth still comes to you, the good relationships, the family and friends still come to you, and you remain satisfied no matter what. So from the Buddhist perspective, the external material goods are not the problem. So we shouldn't be throwing away our wealth or giving up our jobs, going into the cave and meditating. Look, that total ascetic lifestyle, we shouldn't necessarily be thinking that way, because because just throwing away the material things that we have of themselves may not bring us any more happiness if our mind is still dissatisfied. So I've said here that the mind is the source of all happiness and all of our problems. So is the mind itself the problem? That's an open question. So is the mind the problem that we have? Is it an insurmountable problem? Because the mind's always problematic. No? Yeah. Why do you say that? Yeah, that's a very good answer. You can control your own attitudes and perceptions about things. So even though we have, the mental problems that we encounter, etc., then we can control and we can transform. And in Buddhism we use the analogy of the clouds and the sky. So I mentioned this last week. So the clouds being the mental problems or delusions, agitated states of mind that we do have from time to time, and the sky being the crystal clear nature of the mind. So just like all beings want happiness and don't want suffering, all beings have that potential to achieve that sky-like or crystal clear mind. So, and when we analyse it further, because the problems are cloud-like, the clouds part and all you're left is with clear open sky. So that's our fundamental nature, according to Buddhism. So it's not like, oh well, we're born in problems, sins, etc., and that's it, we can't change or do anything about it. So there's this fundamental clear nature that we can aim and strive for and hopefully get to. So, and the historical Buddha is an example of a being who, like us, human, he had a great upbringing, rich life. Then he went through many trials and tribulations, but then eventually he came to the conclusion that, this enlightened state was possible even for someone like him who had problems, but he was able to resolve them. So that should provide us with some inspiration for ourselves, that we shouldn't think of ourselves as worthless or lowly or, just to be discarded. So there is quite a lot of value in the human form, the potential. So we should value that ourselves. So, are all afflicted emotions bad? So, I'll give you an example, like anger. Is anger always bad? Yes? Probably, yes, okay. Anyone else? No? Yeah, so it's quite difficult because sometimes there can be an act that's very wrathful, powerful towards someone, particularly like you see parents with children. But the intention from that wrathfulness isn't to harm the child. Generally it's to keep them out of harm, if they're about to run on the road, for example, something like that. So the motivation there's no ill will or hatred, and the act is to perhaps protect that child, for example, using that example. But in other instances, if we act with true anger, it's mixed with some form of ill will or hatred towards whoever we're getting angry with. And at that point, it's not that good for us, let alone the person we're angry at. And one of the reasons that state of anger is not so good for us is when we're experiencing that state of anger at that moment, our mind experiences no happiness. So it's not at peace, it's very agitated. So there's no moment of happiness sort of interspersed with the anger. It's just a forceful emotion of anger at that point that's coloured with that hatred or ill will. So if we act with anger, there's the danger that we're going to harm the other person and also ourselves. So, and a Buddhist concept I talked about last week was the law of cause and effect. So even tonight, if we've created a good motivation and we're going to create some positive energy out of that experience. So with anger, they say it's quick to rise, and a moment of anger can destroy a lot of positive energy, like very quickly. So even if you've led a really, really, really good life for a long time, created lots of good deeds, lots of merit, positive potential, etc., a moment of anger can destroy it. So if we're not meant to act with anger, are we meant to just bottle it up? So just sort of let it sort of drop into our solar plexus area and let it sort of swirl around and keep swirling around even after the moment's come and gone? Is that a good way to deal with it? No. So that's not so good either, because that has physical and mental ramifications or impacts for us. If we just bottle it up, and you can see it sort of like, it'll be like that for you. You'll just be tight, because that recollection of that moment will just set you off again. So that's not the best method to cope with that situation. So there are a few different Buddhist techniques for dealing with the emotion of anger that we experience within ourselves, and also when someone is angry at us. So I'll just read out a few of them, and then we'll go through some of them and we'll work out whether they're doable or not. So the first one is, oh yes, we can be like a piece of wood, totally inert and unresponsive to others' anger. So that's one method. So it's like, oh yeah, I hear you, and then it's like, I'm going to be like that, just inert, frozen. So it's like, so that's one method, can be tried. So people have had some success with that one. The second method is, if you feel anger rising, we can recall the disadvantages of anger. So we talked about a few of those effectively. The destroying of all the merit or good qualities you've created. I guess with anger you can do something terrible. You can kill someone, harm them terribly. You know, there's lots of disadvantages there for acting with anger. But at the moment that we're feeling anger, recalling the disadvantages, do you think that would be a very easy thing to do at that moment? No. Yes. So it's not, you know, well, when you're in the moment, you know, you're getting angry, and then is the thought going to pop up that, oh, I should now list the disadvantages of anger. So it's having a conversation with yourself while you're angry. So it's quite hard, very hard to do. So anyway, there's the second technique, that one. So it is said that the antidote to anger is love. So love in this case, this is the Buddhist concept of it, is the wish for others to be happy. So when you're overcome with anger, is that an easy wish to have? No, that's probably harder than the previous one about listing the disadvantages. So that's a hard one to recall, that love. So another method is, we can focus on the true nature of anger. So when you're seething with anger, is it easy to examine in minute detail the true nature of that emotion? When you're going through that feeling, is it easy to just analyse the true nature of that feeling? So no, there's another no. So that's 4, and so they're not so easy to do, those ones. So because they require quite a lot of discipline beforehand, I think, to actually have a state of mind where you can focus on the true nature of anger while the anger's still there. Quite difficult to do, I think. So So another method is we can focus on the breath. So when we were meditating, we were breathing in, breathing out, and that was our focus, the sensation. And then if we do that regularly enough, then it does bring a form of peace and mental quietude. And it can be that it only lasts as long as you're sitting meditating, but afterwards you might see an effect that your mind is naturally calmer and less agitated, more subdued. So that's a good thing. But this is talking about focusing on the breath when anger arises. Could anyone see how this would be a good method? Yes, unless you stop breathing. But if you're still breathing while anger's there, then you can switch, because the emotion's there, but then if you switch the attention to the breathing, you don't have to close your eyes or anything, but you're just in and out, and that's your focus. What you'll find is that the intensity of that anger will dissipate. So whereas it was all-consuming, it'll just become... Because that's one of the other characteristics of anger, is that it's quick to rise and can also dissipate as quickly. So the breath's a good one. It is easier, yes, because we're practicing it. But also, even when we're not meditating, like you said, if you've done the practice of breathing meditation, then it's easy to recollect, I suppose, as well, the peaceful state it brings you. But it's also being able to mentally switch. That's the key thing here, is that there's the anger, and then there's the breathe, breathe, breathe. And then you look back at the anger and it's sort of gone, it's shrunk into the moment's past. So it's just one technique, but it's quite a good one. And when you're doing the breathing meditation, that's one of the outcomes of that meditation, is you do it, and then when you finish the meditation, there's a little bit of a tail effect that, I'm actually feeling quite good, calm for a period after your meditation. So it's unexpected, but it does happen because your mind is more subdued and it lasts longer. So and this is another technique. So is anger permanent? So we've sort of just covered that, but is it permanent? Is it a permanent state that we have? We're always angry, and we'd have to say no. Maybe there are people who are consumed with anger all the time, but in general, for us, it's flashes up and then it's very intense. But we wouldn't say it's permanent. So if we have that knowledge or understanding, and we don't react with anger, like all impermanent things, it will dissipate or pass. So just as Carol was saying though, with the other techniques, like the breathing meditation, giving you an effect afterwards, but also the other techniques that I've sort of gone through, they really require you to be doing some sort of contemplation about anger and its nature, and so on to be effective, but they can be effective. So even the one that's the antidote to anger is love, the wish for others to be happy. So even that one, which seems incredibly difficult to recall that feeling of love at the moment that you have anger, even that can be done through listening, contemplating and then meditating on it. So I work in a medical clinic at the moment, and I work in my wife and I run a jewellery shop. And before that I was in finance for quite a few years. I was working in sort of essentially corporate banking, and so I did have the experience of working with someone whose default approach was to yell and intimidate others. So that wasn't a really good working environment, I would say. It was terrible actually. So because the people who were working for that person would walk on eggshells essentially. They'd come in and think, oh, what's going to happen today? That sort of feeling, quite a bit of trauma, I think, in that working environment. So anyway, with the benefit of hindsight, I can look back now and go, oh, well, his team was suffering and so was he. So as well as the poor workers are suffering because they're just not sure what's going on, what's going to happen next. He was suffering as well because he was just consumed by anger. He couldn't. That was his default approach to the workplace. Was I'm going to bark orders. I'm going to yell at people. I'm going to tell people off, etc. It's just that not good. Now, I've used this example before. I notice that when I get behind the wheel of a car, I turn into that angry person. So it must be metal box, or cocooned. It's pretty safe, and then it's like and beep, and so they cut me off, that sort of thing. But immediately it's sort of I'm in a very agitated state of mind driving. So it's So has anyone else experienced that? Driving on our great roads? Yes, okay. Yeah. So to me that's a test, a good indication that even though I'm great, Mark is very calm, collected, but when I get behind the wheel of a car, it's like the change comes over me. So there's a lot of work for me to do. But still, at least I can self-reflect enough to know that change happens to me when I get behind the wheel of a car and something happens. So that's a good thing. So does anyone have any questions about anger or some of those antidotes? Okay. So the opposite of anger is the patience, the practice of patience. So and that's characterised by that mind of patience that we have. It doesn't have anger in it. We don't get discouraged. And we harbour no dislike. So we're sort of holding those three things, and then we could say, that we've mastered that practice of patience, which is the antidote to anger. So the mind of anger doesn't arise. We don't feel any discouragement if we're experiencing it, or we're the object of someone's anger, and we don't harbour any dislike for perhaps the being or the person that's angry at us. So I'll read out some of the advantages of that practice of patience, and these come from the Buddhist scriptures, and some of them sound quite historical. So just bear with me though. So, one cannot be conquered by an external enemy. So I'm not sure in this here in Australia, whether any of us could say we have an external enemy who's out to conquer us. So that seems like quite a historical, in the old days when there was fighting and war, like lots of battles and things like that. Well, you won't be conquered if you have that sort of practice of patience. You can't be conquered by an external enemy. So that one's a bit, probably needs a bit of examination. Yep, your question?
Would that be related to someone inflicting anger on himself and not allowing that to control you?
That's a good way of looking at it. Yes. Well, the thing is, if that external enemy kills you, I'd say they've conquered you.
From the emotional and mental capacity?
Maybe not. That's a good point then, isn't it? So if someone is about to kill you and you have no anger, then you're not conquered at that point from that point of view, because you have patience. But you're physically conquered. So yeah, it depends on how that's read, isn't it? The next one is one's mental and physical happiness increase. So I think this one's easier to see. So if you have the practice of patience, your mental and physical happiness will increase. The next advantage of patience is one will have few enemies. Why not?
I just think sometimes you can be so patient that people just keep stuffing you around.
Yep.
And it gets resolved, it sort of drag out.
Yep. Yes, so that's an interesting query you have about that, because
As in, I think people can take advantage.
yes, so and this is where it's sort of quite a subtle point, but this mind of patience isn't, apart from being like an inert piece of wood, that technique, the mind of patience isn't the one that's saying, well, I'm too weak to do anything, so I'm just going to do nothing. Bring it on, like that. Just like you said, you become an emotional outlet for that person to keep attacking you, or the next person, or so.
Well, I suppose I'm thinking of children.
Oh, if you don't stand up to them,
Well, you can just be terribly patient and it's in their nature to challenge you.
yep, take advantage.
It's a never-ending
Yep, yep, yeah. So where the balance is like, if the person's challenging you or abusing you or whatever it is, or trying you on with children, so there's a lot of that, then if you don't have the mind of anger at that point and you've developed patience, you can still act. So a lot of people think, oh, it's passive. You just, I'll take it, bring it on. But you can still act, but you're just at that moment not acting with anger. And in fact, that's a lot more powerful, because the person's going, oh, well, hold on, they didn't yell at me, but they were really strong and forceful with the point they made. And that point could be, I'm not continuing the conversation, I'm moving away from harm, I'm going to take action. You know, there's quite a lot of things that we can do, but we still don't at that point have anger inside us.
Suppose it's not reacting, like in that negative way, if someone's pushing buttons, you can still act, but not react.
Yep.
So not being like let them push your buttons, but you can try and redirect the conversation.
Yeah.
Or put it another way that they can try and understand the conversation.
Yep. Yeah, so it's an important distinction, because I think even Buddhists think, oh well, she's got great patience. She she just lets them all, like you're saying, try it on, and it's like, and then the person who's the perpetrator will do it again, because they know they get no reaction at all, so they think, oh well, I can just keep doing it. But you need to have some skill to say, well, no, deflect, stop, move aside, or no, I'm not engaging, whatever it is. I'll give you another advantage of patience. One will die without regret. So if you develop that practice of patience, then when you die, you won't have regret. That's quite a tricky one, I think, huh? Because that's sort of like drawing a thread between your patience, so that peaceful mind you have, and no regret at all. So,
Is the acceptance in there somewhere?
acceptance of.
No, just what you just said, like if you patient, you die with no regret. I'm just trying to
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point.
an acceptance to what it is.
Yes. So generally, when we say the person died with regret, or that there's, at the moment that they're dying, or they're reaching out to something that happened or to them in the past and saying, oh, I wish I'd done this, or I wish I'd said that. There's that. So this seems to be that with the practice of patience, which is the mental piece, so maybe it's an acceptance of what is and what's happening, that at the point of death, you won't have that experience of regret, longing regret, or, oh, I should have done that, I should have said this, I wish I'd done that. So that won't happen. I'll move on. There's a few more. So here you go. In one's future rebirth, one's appearance will be beautiful or pleasant to others. That's good to know, yes. So, does that ring true? That you'll be pleasant or beautiful to others? If you develop that practice of patience now or in this life? Yeah, that's another one that you probably need to examine. But I think I've looked at the flip side of this, which is at the moment of anger, if the other person's angry, are you attracted to that other person at that point? Are they according to this, are they beautiful or pleasant at that point? No. So to me that's probably that one. Okay, that one sort of makes sense from just looking at it from the other way. Because when someone's really angry, like their features distort generally, and their facial features, their eyes and everything, and their mouth becomes tight. So it's sort of like it's not attractive, I don't think. Okay, so another one here. With the advantage of patience, others are attracted to you. So if you develop patience, people are drawn to you. So I think that's true. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. 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 Someone mentioned to me recently, non-judgmental. But the person they were talking to was non-judgmental about them. So it must mean whatever they lay on that person, the person doesn't react with disdain or horror. They just go, okay, these are your problems, let's talk about them, and sort of open and non-judgmental. So some sort of, yeah, so I agree with that one. That one, if you've got patience, I think others would be attracted to you. The last one here is, because we have ceased harming others through anger, our life will be better and our future life will be high and peaceful. So this one's talking about this life, but also future lives. So I think from just my examination of this topic, I'd say that definitely my life would be better if I developed patience. This life, this one, so it has an impact straight away. Not reacting with anger, so having that patience. Now this is coming from the Buddhist scripture. Our future life will be high and peaceful. So essentially, those peaceful qualities, they're habit forming, and they ripen in the future in the person achieving a high state with a peaceful demeanour. So, and when we were talking before about the meditation and the advantages and so on, so we might think, oh gosh, I'm going to meditate, and then finish, has a little bit of an effect, and then I go on with my life, and then when I die and then I'm reborn again, I have to start again to relearn those techniques. But what might happen is you finish this life and you're reborn, and then you make a quantum leap as a meditator or a student, that because of the practice you've done previously. So that's the ripening of this, the law of cause and effect. So you think, oh well, it's only a small thing, small little practice I did, but it ripened into a big result. So that's a possibility in Buddhism that can happen. And I think that's what they're talking about, a future life being high and peaceful. So let's do some meditation. For those of you who are new, this is a breathing meditation. And this one gives you the experience of the mind being at peace. So it, if you like, it clears away the obstacles and the worries and afflictions we may have, and which we've talked about as being some sort of like clouds, and it brings you that state of mind, because the mind at that point is at rest. And we would say that our sky-like nature or crystal clear nature is revealed. So so make yourself comfortable. So the most important thing with meditation is to try and keep your back straight. And you can do that sitting on a chair or cross-legged, whatever you like. So you keep your mouth closed, because you're going to be breathing through your nose. And the focus of our meditation is going to be on the breath. So in our tradition, we have the left hand on the bottom and the right hand on top, and then the thumbs join, and the thumbs, you rest your hands on your lap, and then the thumbs point back towards your navel. So the resident teacher, Geshe Doga, says this has a great effect, that thumbs pointing, just pointing back, because there's a lot of energy in this area of the body, and it just it has a calming effect. So our eyes are going to be not completely closed, not completely open, so you just want to let the impression of light in. So begin by breathing gently through the nostrils. And then imagine as you're breathing in that you get beautiful and light energy coming into you, and as you're breathing out, all your worries and concerns, anxieties are moving away from you, moving out from you. So you can do that for a few moments until you feel its effects. And then switch your focus to the breathing gently through the nostrils, and try and keep your attention there on that sensation. And we'll do that for a few minutes. And then if your concentration wavers and you start thinking about other things, just gently and slowly bring your attention back to the breathing. Just gently bring your awareness back to the room, and you can open your eyes. So again, for people beginning a meditation practice, so it's said to do the meditation for a very short time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's it. And then dedicate any merit you've gained from that, and then finish. So that gives you some energy to come back and do it again. So if you go too long, too fast, then you'll do it once and then you won't want to do meditation again. So it's a bit like, I think it's a little bit like I'm going to go to the gym and do a workout for 3 hours, having not been in the gym, before. So you might be able to get through 3 hours worth of gym training one time, and then when it comes to do the next workout, it's more than likely you come up with a reason to not go to the gym. So because you just burnt yourself out. So it's very important. Same with the mind when you're doing meditation practice, to just go gently, and then they say if you can do the meditation practice once is good, once a day is very good to develop some sort of habit or pattern, and then if you can do it more than that, that's very good, and to find a nice place to do it as well. Does anyone have any questions before we? Yes? How do we dedicate? All right. So generally, when if you're going to do your you're talking about meditation practice and dedication. So you can, and it's the same as we'll do tonight at the end of this. But if we do the motivation at the beginning, so we set that very good direction. I'm going to do this meditation for the benefit of myself or all sentient beings, so that really has a powerful impact on the meditation practice. And then doing the practice itself, it might be good, might be not so good, doesn't matter so much, but when we're beginners, so we just keep going. Then when we finish, and it's the end of the practice, we can dedicate any merit or energy, positive energy we've accumulated during that period, again for the same two classes of beings, ourselves, our own benefit, or for all sentient beings. So the first dedication is quite easy, because we're naturally quite self-centered or me-focused, so that one's an easy dedication. I'm dedicating this for my own happiness. That's very natural to do. The second dedication, I'm dedicating this for all sentient beings, that's much more difficult. I wouldn't say it's more difficult, because we can always mouth the words, but it's much more contrived to begin with, that state of mind. But like a lot of things, if we develop the practice, we get to the state of even the dedication for all sentient beings becomes rich, spontaneous, natural. And then that, as well as our action, the action of meditation and the motivation, that carries through the rest of the day. And that's what we try and aspire to, that state, where we're continually in motion, doing actions for the benefit of all beings. So that's a very good question. So that's how. So we can dedicate generally in two ways. But the second one is the one we should try, even if it feels like, I'm just saying it, I don't really mean it, but it will become more natural. Just like meditation. When people first try it, they go, oh, can't do it, can't switch off, can't stop my thoughts. But then the mind becomes subdued. So when I was young, we went for like a footy camp down at Phillip Island, and I remember looking, it must have been cliffs or something, and I was just standing there and looking at the ocean coming in and out, and all of a sudden I became very mesmerised by the waves coming, in the rolling waves, and it subdued my mind for a moment. So I was only young, but I thought, oh, well, okay. So that wasn't even meditate, that was just, so I thought, well, so it gave me the idea that there's some possibility that even my mind could be subdued somewhat. So that was good. So I think each of us have got a recollection and experience like that, but certainly that's one of the goals of meditation, is to bring on that state within ourselves. That's very good. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. So we can do this in the meditation posture. We can quietly dedicate for ourselves or for the benefit of sentient beings, and then since we've only just begun these Monday nights again here at Tar Institute, there's tea in the coffee lounge over there afterwards. So if people want to stay for a little while, have a tea and biscuits, you're welcome to. But first we'll get back into the meditation posture, and we'll just quickly and quietly dedicate. So I'm going to dedicate any merits that I've accumulated for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you next week, hopefully. Thank you.